The fires in Oregon are not slowing down. They are getting worse. What began as a difficult summer of scattered blazes has escalated into a full-blown statewide emergency, and every day the news grows more alarming. The flames are burning hotter, spreading faster, and reaching deeper into new territory, while fresh fires keep emerging on a landscape already stretched to its breaking point. The total scorched area has now surpassed 600,000 acres, and with the fires intensifying and new ones igniting, that staggering figure climbs higher with each passing day. This is the moment in a fire crisis that emergency officials fear most, the point where the situation is not stabilizing, but accelerating, where firefighters who have already given everything are being asked to hold the line against blazes that are only growing stronger. When a fire intensifies, it does not simply cover more ground. It becomes more dangerous, more unpredictable, and harder to fight, throwing longer flames, spreading through the crowns of trees, and hurling embers far ahead to ignite new spot fires. And when new fires keep emerging even as the existing ones grow, the entire firefighting effort is stretched past its limits, forced to defend more fronts than it possibly can. In this video, we are going to walk through exactly what is happening across Oregon as this emergency intensifies. We will look at the largest and most dangerous fires, the new blazes emerging across the state. The communities under threat, the thousands forced from their homes, and the exhausted crews battling on every front. We will explain why the fires are getting worse, what conditions are driving the escalation, and what the days ahead may hold. And most importantly, we will talk about what people in the fire zones need to know to stay safe. This is a fast-moving and worsening emergency, so stay with us, because understanding what is unfolding across Oregon right now matters, whether you live in the path of these flames or simply want to grasp the true scale of what this state is facing. Hashtag, an emergency that keeps growing. The most frightening thing about the situation in Oregon is not any single number. It is the direction those numbers are moving. This is not a crisis that has peaked and begun to fade. It is one that is still expanding, still intensifying, with more than 600,000 acres already burned, and the total rising as the fires push into new ground and new blazes emerge across the state. When a wildfire emergency is on this kind of trajectory, every day brings the possibility that it gets worse rather than better, and that is exactly the pattern Oregon has been living through. Part of what makes this so dangerous is the combination of fires intensifying and new fires emerging at the same time. On its own, either would be a serious challenge. Together, they create a compounding crisis. The fires that were already burning are growing larger and more aggressive, demanding more crews and aircraft to hold them back. And at the same time, fresh ignitions keep appearing, opening entirely new fronts that also demand resources. The firefighting system, which has finite crews, engines, and aircraft, simply cannot expand fast enough to match a threat that is multiplying on two axes at once. Every new fire that emerges pulls resources away from the fires already burning, and every fire that intensifies demands more than it did the day before. This is why the acreage total keeps climbing past 600,000 and shows little sign of leveling off. It is the arithmetic of an emergency that is outpacing the human effort to contain it. Fire managers are forced into brutal triage, concentrating their limited resources on protecting lives and homes, while accepting that vast areas of wildland will continue to burn. And with conditions remaining extreme, the danger is that the intensification continues, that the fires keep growing, and new ones keep emerging, driving the crisis to an even more dangerous scale before relief finally arrives. Hashtag, the largest fires on the land, the heaviest concentration of this emergency, has fallen on Central Oregon, the high country and canyon lands east of the Cascade Mountains, where a landscape of juniper, sagebrush, dry grass, and scattered timber has become a tinderbox. Here, several of the largest and most dangerous fires are burning, feeding on parched vegetation and driven by wind and heat into fast-moving walls of flame. But the crisis has not stayed in one place. Fires are burning in the forests near the great volcanic peaks of the Cascades. Across the eastern rangelands, and in scattered pockets throughout the state, each a separate front in a war fought on an enormous scale. Among the giants of this emergency is a sprawling complex of fires that has grown across a vast stretch of central and north-central Oregon, charring an area so large it would be a major disaster in almost any ordinary year. A complex, in firefighting terms, is a group of fires managed together under a single command because they burn in the same area, and this one grew from multiple ignitions that spread and merged across the dry landscape into a single interconnected monster. The terrain makes it brutally hard to fight, a country of steep canyons, rolling hills, and remote rangeland where roads are few and much of the battle has to be waged from the air, with tankers and helicopters dropping water and retardant while ground crews carve fire breaks and punishing heat and thick smoke. Elsewhere, fast-moving fires have torn toward populated areas with frightening speed. In the region around Warm Springs and Madras, a rapidly intensifying blaze forced some of the most urgent evacuations of the entire emergency, striking hard at communities including the lands of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, where the threat is not just to vegetation, but to homes, history, and the fabric of a community's life. This fire changed direction and intensity with alarming speed and has already taken homes. A devastating reminder of how quickly a distant column of smoke can become an immediate, life-threatening emergency. Fires burning in the forested high country near Mount Hood have forced their own evacuations as flames climbed through timbered slopes, and another central Oregon blaze grew toward the scale that firefighters call a megafire. The truly enormous events that consume 100,000 acres or more. Hashtag, as new fires emerge even as those established fires intensify, the crisis is being fed by something equally alarming, the steady emergence of new fires across the state. This is what turns a serious situation into an overwhelming one. A landscape this dry and this hot is primed to ignite, and every new spark, whether from lightning, from equipment, from a vehicle, or from any other source, threatens to become the next major blaze. When conditions are this extreme, fires do not stay small for long. A new start that might ordinarily be caught and extinguished in its first hour can, under these conditions, grow into a large fire within a day. The emergence of new fires is what makes the acreage total so relentless in its climb. Just as firefighters begin to make progress against one blaze, another erupts somewhere else, pulling crews and aircraft away and opening a new front. Each new fire is not just an addition to the map. It is a fresh demand on a firefighting system that is already stretched beyond its limits. A new community potentially in the path of danger, and a new source of smoke pouring into skies already choked with it. And because the conditions driving these ignitions have not eased, the threat of still more new fires hangs over the entire state, keeping fire managers on edge and preventing any real sense of the crisis being brought under control. This is the defining feature of the emergency right now. It is not a single disaster in a single place that can be surrounded and slowly defeated. It is a dynamic, expanding threat, with existing fires growing more intense and new ones emerging to take their place on the map. Until the conditions change, until the heat breaks and the winds calm and the moisture returns. That dangerous pattern is likely to continue, and the burned area is likely to keep climbing well beyond the 600,000 acres already lost. Hashtag, the people in the path behind every acre and every fire are people, and it is their stories that give this emergency its true weight. Across Oregon, thousands of residents have been placed under evacuation orders, uprooted from their homes and thrust into frightening uncertainty. Oregon's evacuation system uses 3 levels that have become grimly familiar to those who live in fire country. Level 1 means be ready, aware that danger exists and preparing to leave. Level 2 means be set, packed and prepared to go at a moment's notice. And Level 3, the most severe, means go now, leave immediately, Do not wait. Your life is in danger, and every second counts. As the fires have intensified, all 3 levels have rippled across the state, and the most severe go-now orders have sent families racing out of their homes with whatever they could grab in the final moments. Imagine that reality. You look out your window and see the sky glowing orange, the smoke thickening, ash beginning to fall. The alert comes through telling you to leave immediately. You have minutes to gather your children, your pets, and your most irreplaceable belongings, and to get out while the roads are still open. You drive away, not knowing if you will ever see your home again. Joining a line of frightened neighbors fleeing the same advancing threat. And because the fires are intensifying and new ones keep emerging, some families have received these orders with terrifyingly little warning. For some, the worst has already come to pass. Homes have been lost in this emergency, families returning to find nothing but ash and rubble where their lives once stood. The loss of a home is not just the loss of a building. It is the loss of a lifetime of memories, of photographs and heirlooms, and the small, irreplaceable things that made a house a home. And for the many thousands still under evacuation orders, living in shelters, hotels, or with friends and family, there is the agony of waiting, of watching the maps and praying the flames turn away. Evacuation is not simple either, especially in rural areas where distances are great and roads are few. For the elderly, for people with disabilities, for those without reliable transportation, for families with livestock, the challenge of getting out safely can be immense, and an intensifying fire leaves precious little margin. Hashtag, the exhausted frontline standing between these fires and the towns in their path is a force of firefighters whose endurance almost defies belief. These are the men and women working brutal shifts in punishing heat, breathing smoke, hiking into rugged country with heavy gear, and putting themselves directly in harm's way to protect people they have never met. When the fires are intensifying and new ones keep emerging, the demand on these crews becomes almost inhuman, and the toll it takes on them, physically and emotionally, is enormous. Firefighting on this scale is a massive, coordinated operation. There are the hand crews cutting fire breaks with chainsaws and hand tools. There are the engine crews defending homes directly, clearing flammable material and spraying water. There are the helicopters and air tankers attacking from above where the ground crews cannot reach. There are the bulldozers carving lines, the incident commanders coordinating it all, and the vast support network feeding and sustaining the operation. But when fires intensify and multiply, even this formidable force gets stretched past its limits. Crews are pulled from one fire to another as priorities shift. Resources requested from other states and regions take time to arrive. Firefighters who have already worked long, exhausting assignments are asked to keep going as the situation worsens around them. And always there is the danger, because wildland firefighting is genuinely perilous work. And every crew member on those lines is accepting real risk to protect others. They are the human wall holding back the flames, and in an emergency that keeps intensifying, they are being tested as rarely before. Hashtag, why the fires are getting worse. It is natural to ask why the fires are intensifying rather than easing, and the answer lies in the conditions that have gripped Oregon this summer. The first and most immediate factor is the weather. Wildfires thrive on heat, dryness, and wind, and this stretch of summer has delivered all 3 in punishing abundance. Prolonged heat has baked the landscape, driving the moisture out of the vegetation and turning grass, brush, and timber into ready fuel. Low humidity leaves little moisture in the air to slow a fire down, and wind is the great accelerant, pushing flames across the land, carrying embers ahead to start new spot fires, and turning a manageable blaze into a raging front in a matter of hours. As long as these conditions persist, the fires have every advantage, and they intensify accordingly. The second factor is the state of the landscape itself. Much of Oregon, especially the drier country east of the Cascades, is naturally prone to fire, and years of drought and dryness have left the vegetation especially parched and primed to burn. The fuels are cured and abundant, loaded with the raw material for disaster and waiting only for ignition. This is why new fires emerge so readily, and why existing fires grow so fast. Because the landscape itself is ready to explode at the slightest provocation. Behind these immediate factors looms the larger, long-term trend scientists have documented across the West. The way a warming climate has been lengthening and intensifying fire seasons, drying out landscapes, and creating conditions favorable to larger and more frequent fires. Emergencies like this one, where fires grow more intense and new blazes keep emerging, are part of a pattern that has been building for years. Oregon's current crisis is a local emergency, but it is also a chapter in a much larger story unfolding across the entire region, one that has made these escalating, hard-to-control fire events increasingly common. Hashtag, the smoke that travels one of the most far-reaching consequences of a fire emergency on this scale spreads well beyond the flames, affecting people hundreds of miles from the nearest fire line. That consequence is smoke. When more than 600,000 acres are burning and the fires are intensifying, they produce an immense and growing volume of it, and that smoke does not stay put. It rises, spreads, and drifts on the wind across vast distances, degrading air quality over enormous areas and affecting the health of countless people who never see a flame. Wildfire smoke is genuinely hazardous. It is filled with tiny particles that can penetrate deep into the lungs and even enter the bloodstream. And breathing it can cause everything from irritated eyes and throats and coughing to far more serious effects, especially for vulnerable groups. Children, the elderly, pregnant women, and people with heart or lung conditions such as asthma are particularly at risk. And for them, a heavy smoke event can be dangerous or even life-threatening. When air quality plunges into the unhealthy or hazardous range, the guidance is to stay indoors, keep windows closed, use air filtration if possible, and avoid strenuous outdoor activity. The smoke from Oregon's fires has turned skies orange and gray across the region, reduced visibility, and blanketed communities in a choking haze, a constant visible reminder written across the sky that something enormous and dangerous is happening across the state, and that it is not letting up. Hashtag, what residents need to know for anyone living in or near the fire zones. Knowing what to do is essential, and it can be the difference between safety and tragedy. The single most important principle is to stay informed and be ready to act quickly, because these fires are intensifying, new ones are emerging, and conditions can change in an instant. Pay close attention to official evacuation information and take it seriously. If you reach the be ready level, start preparing in earnest, gathering important documents, medications, and irreplaceable belongings, planning your route out, and arranging for pets and animals. If you reach be set, be genuinely ready to leave at a moment's notice, with your vehicle packed and pointed toward the exit. And if you are ever told to go now, do exactly that, immediately, without hesitation, and without stopping for more things. No possession is worth your life. And the people who get hurt in wildfires are too often those who waited too long or went back for one more thing. Prepare before any order arrives. Have an emergency kit ready with water, medications, important documents, a change of clothes, and supplies for children and pets. Know multiple routes out of your area in case the primary road is blocked. Keep your vehicle fueled during fire season. Sign up for local emergency alerts so warnings reach you quickly. And talk with your family about a plan so that if you are separated when an emergency strikes, everyone knows where to go. For those with livestock, plan early because moving animals takes time you may not have once a fire is close. Protect yourself from the smoke as well, staying indoors when air quality is poor. Sealing your home against the outside air, and taking special care of the very young, the very old, and those with health conditions. And look out for your neighbors, especially those who may need help evacuating, because in an emergency like this, communities survive by taking care of one another. Hashtag the days ahead as this emergency continues to intensify. The crucial question is what comes next. And the honest answer is that much depends on the weather. Fire seasons live and die by conditions, and the difference between fires that keep growing and ones that firefighters can finally corral often comes down to a shift in temperature, humidity, and wind. A break in the heat, a rise in moisture, a calming of the winds. Or, best of all, a soaking rain can give crews the opening they need to gain ground and begin turning the tide. But continued heat, wind, and dryness can drive further intensification and allow still more new fires to emerge, which is the very real danger with a landscape this primed to burn, and a crisis already on an upward trajectory. Firefighters and emergency managers will keep working around the clock, prioritizing the protection of lives and homes, calling in resources from wherever they can be found, and adapting their strategy as the fires and the weather evolve. Some of the fires burning now will eventually be contained. Others may continue to grow. New fires may emerge. And through it all, the communities of Oregon will continue the hard work of enduring, of evacuating and sheltering and supporting one another, and eventually of returning and rebuilding when the flames finally pass. It is worth remembering, even in the midst of an intensifying crisis, that Oregon and the broader West have faced fire before, and have always found the strength to recover. Landscapes regrow, communities rebuild, people help one another through the worst of it, and emerge on the other side. For now, though, the emergency is still intensifying. More than 600,000 acres burned and climbing, fires growing stronger and new ones emerging, thousands of people displaced, homes lost, and a firefighting force pushed to its limits. This is one of the most serious wildfire situations Oregon has faced, a worsening siege of flame and smoke that has transformed the landscape and upended countless lives. Our thoughts are with everyone affected, with the families who have lost so much, with those still waiting to learn the fate of their homes, and with the brave crews on the front line. If you are in the fire zone, stay alert, stay ready, and stay safe. Listen to the officials, heed the orders, and do not take chances with these fast-moving, intensifying flames. And to everyone watching, keep the people of Oregon in your thoughts as they face down this fierce and still growing emergency, and hold on to the hope that cooler days and calmer winds will soon bring this weary state the relief it so desperately needs.